Welcome, Goddess. I am ecstatic to share with you the conversation on Moonifesting with the moon cycle phases with CJ Thomas, who is a priestesspreneur, yogini, and creator of Life by the Moon Yoga. Her purpose is to guide and witness people in their transformation and hold space for those in the community to feel safe and supported in stepping into their power. She teaches women how to implement the ancient wisdom of yoga and Ayurveda into their modern day lifestyle through her signature Sexy Sacred Balance coaching program. She also wrote an ebook called Right by the Moon, a 28-day journal companion for manifesting with the cycles of the moon. To learn more about CJ and her offerings, visit lifebythemoonyoga.com and receive information on Ayurveda, mindfulness, and set up a free Sexy Sacred Balance assessment call. Blessings, goddesses. I'm here with CJ Thomas of Life by the Moon Yoga. Feeling so blessed to have this dear sister here to share about the journey of manifestation, or aka moonifestation. Moonifestation.
Yes.
And this can be done with the cycles of the moon and how it fluctuates, as well as our own menstrual cycle, the menstrual cycle. So, so blessed to have this sister here. And yeah, CJ, just to get to know you a little bit more, we'd love to hear a bit about your journey and how you came into these practices of manifestation, manifestation, and
Yeah. So I learned this a while ago, but the way that I realized that my guides communicate with me is actually through electronic mediums. And so a lot of the things that have put me along my path have come through the form of like podcasts or just something like a random YouTube video that pops up. And so that's actually kind of how I got into this. About 3 years ago, or actually I guess 4 years ago now, I was living in Denver, Colorado, and I was working at an elementary school, and I had just started stumbling onto podcasts about manifestation. And up until that point, I really didn't understand anything that had to do with the fact that we create our realities. And so when that came in, I was like, wow, this is amazing, and I have to learn everything I can about it. And I started diving in, and then all of a sudden, one day, totally different podcast, I learned something about like the fact that our womb is connected to the moon, and learning about the different cycles in terms of how that all works. And I was like, wow, okay, there's another thread that I can follow. And so anything that I can find where I can do more research, the Virgo moon in me is like, get all the details you can. And so I did that. And as I would think about it more and more, I started thinking about manifestation, and just nothing ever came to me that told me that the two were linked, except for just a download of like, there's got to be something here. So I remember I was sitting in a coffee shop, and I was like, you know what? I want to write a book about this. I want to do all the research I can and really write something out, even if it's just for myself. So I started in a little composition book, and I'm writing down like, okay, let's start with the moon phases. What are the moon phases? What do they all look like? You know, writing down like new moon, waxing gibbous, full moon, waning, all of it. And I started writing down what the energy was like for each one. And as it just kind of just downloaded, it all just came into me, and I'm like, okay, keep going, just learn a little bit about the moon cycles and everything else will come. And so I jump forward to when I moved out here to Ashland, Oregon, and I'm living with a friend of mine with his family. And I was like, you know what, it keeps coming up in my head, and I'm ready to finish this book, because I had started it, but I hadn't really done anything for maybe about 6 months. And I was like, okay, it's time. So I hid out in my room for about 3 months, and I just wrote this book. And what was interesting about it is that when I came out here, I had already been working with the cycle of the moon to manifest. And that's actually how I made my way out here. I was writing down affirmations and setting intentions with the new moon, and then just letting it go. But as I started to write this book, I realized like, oh, okay, all of the journaling that I've done and everything that I've done, it's actually something that I can use as a framework to help other people manifest with the same process. And that's how Right by the Moon was birthed. And so, yeah, it was something that just, when I think we were just talking about this before we started recording, but that cycle that we go on of like all the little clues that we get in this process of manifestation, and it's just like it kept going faster and faster and faster until it was like, here it is, you've birthed this thing. So.
Just letting myself sit with that. And I love how attuned you are to your womb and the medicine that's coming through you, and being able to receive this wisdom from the earth and the moon cycles and this greater synergy and alignment that's happening beyond us. And when we attune to that, because so often when we're in the city and then there's the lighting and the car noises and just the hustle and bustle, it can take us out of this circadian rhythm and this deep inner knowing of our connection to what's going on with the planets and the earth and the cycles and the seasons. And I know in this course we've talked a lot about the menstrual cycle or moonstral cycle, and how to attune with the seasonal and moon phase rhythms that we go through internally, and how that can, feel different sometimes if the moon phases are in a different phase than what we're in internally with our own menstrual cycle. And it's magical and powerful to be able to flow with ourselves and the cycles of the moon. But I wanted to laser focus into the understandings of the moon energetics themselves and how that flow happens and how you can use it for manifestation. So do you have some insight on that you'd like to share with us?
I do, yeah. So every part of the moon cycle can be reflected in our womb cycle. And so if you're looking at, and I want to just kind of really put this out there, that even if you are not receiving your moon and you're in moon pause, that still relates to you as well. I teach yoni steaming, and a big part of that is setting up a steam schedule. And I tell women in menopause that, you can still set up a cycle. You're just going to follow the moon instead of your own inner moon cycle. Originally, it said that women were all synced up with the new moon, which is represented by winter. And so if you've probably talked about this before in the course, but that's also what our menstruation time represents as well. It's that winter phase, that time of going inward and building ourselves up so that we can get ready for what's to come. And that looks like anything from journaling and taking time away from your outer world and just connecting with yourself, whatever that is. And so the things that you're doing to care for yourself during menstruation time, you're also doing during the new moon, if you have access to that, if that's something that, is available for you. And if it's something that you've never done before, it's a really great time to start. It's also a beautiful time to cleanse. Just as our body is naturally cleansing, we're also able to cleanse energetically. So looking at all of the things that we've taken on that maybe we're ready to release, and it doesn't have to be in the grand scheme of your entire life, but this can just be, and this is another thing I was speaking with Ali about earlier, is that it can just be for this cycle or from the previous cycle. And that's what's so beautiful about the cycle of the moon, is that we go through this 28-day cycle over and over again for our entire lives. And because of that, it can really take a lot of pressure off in terms of manifesting. So when you're looking at what energies am I releasing that no longer serve me, it doesn't have to be everything. Just looking at what works now for what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So that's the new moon. And then it's also a very fertile time for planting seeds of intention. So, whatever it is that you're calling in for this cycle, it's a beautiful time to set up a ceremony for yourself. And ritual can be created in any way. So, if you want to light a candle and sit with that candle and write intentions, that's beautiful. I've done sister circles with women where we will release and call in our intentions with an aspect of each element. So we've used bubbles to represent air, and we blow our bubbles and our intention, our air into the bubbles and into the intention and have that drift off. Or, we've used fire to release, and we've used water, we've used earth, and we've literally written down our intentions and planted those intentions into the earth. And so there's so many different ways that you can do it, and you can be creative, but it doesn't have to be elaborate either. It can literally just be sitting with pen and paper and writing down your intentions. So that's the new moon. And then as you go into the full moon, there is in between, you have that waxing phase. So you're waxing up to the half moon. And then after that, it's considered the waxing gibbous. And that is all about building your energy around what it is you're trying to manifest. And so manifestation is a combination of energy and action. You are taking that time to visualize what it is that you want to call in, but you're also allowing intuitive action to take place. And so I think, I've played with this, and I've seen a lot of people play around with this as well. And especially once you really get into knowing your power to create, it can be really hard to not take action when it's not time to take action. Yeah, right. And especially as entrepreneurs, like that's huge. It's like, I know I can create this. I know what I'm capable of. So I want to take charge. And we are really like challenged at this time to remember that it's also about just sitting and being. Being is a really powerful form of taking action as well. Visualizing, waiting until you really feel it in every part of your body that this is the right move to make, or when you just feel like excited about it. But whenever there's an energy of like a grudge around it, or like a feeling of I should be or I have to be doing this, then you want to take a moment to stop and be like, okay, wait, how else can I build up my energy towards this manifestation? So as you do that work, you're climbing the ladder to the full moon. And the full moon is like a mirror. So all of the energy that you've spent time building up during that waxing phase, it's all going to be reflected back at the full moon. And this will look like either that reflection of the work that you still need to do, or manifestations actually like just appearing. And that's definitely happened for me many times. It'll either be like a couple of days around the full moon or on the full moon that things will happen. I've had situations where I was in separation from a lover, and I was thinking about him the whole time, and just like really wanting us to come back together and not really putting any effort towards it except for just my heart energy towards it. And then I literally remember I'm like walking to the co-op to get ice cream, and I'm looking up at the full moon, and I'm getting ready to take a picture of it with my phone, and he calls, and I'm like, whoa, okay. Like,
Careful what you manifest with your mind and your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. So it's powerful. It really is. And the full moon is a really powerful, potent time where just whatever you haven't looked at, the light is going to be shined on it. And everything that you've been working towards, the light's going to be shined on that as well. So it's really important to be mindful about the energy that you're building up as you move towards that phase. And then we have the waning or waxing. So the waxing building up, the waning going down. That's when you're preparing. So we went through the winter phase of the new moon, the spring phase of the waxing, and then we have that summer phase, that time to receive the abundance, that is the full moon. And then we're kind of harvesting and getting rid of, kind of letting things go, packing it up as we go through the waning phase. And so for a lot of women, I know for me, I get the most done during that time. That's the time when I'm like, okay, it's like there's a clock that starts running and I've got to get things done now. And it's so easy. I'm really in my flow. I almost imagine it as being like going downhill, and it's fall time. And so you're going to want to be wrapping things up, wrapping up projects, really looking at, okay, now that I have the light shown on what it is that I need to eliminate or transform or whatever it is, now I can do the work on that. And the energy of that phase is really supporting you in that. And then we come back around to winter, that time when we get to go inward and we get to do it all over again. And we get to say, all right, these intentions manifested, or maybe these ones didn't. And so now, how can I work towards bringing this next set of intentions in? And what else am I looking at shedding as I go into this next cycle?
Thank you for that. I just want to touch on some points that you brought up. This idea of like, wow, I just got impregnated with this idea. I felt all this energy. Let's make it happen now, and pushing it forward. Sometimes it's not the right timing. Sometimes, we need that spaciousness to continue to cultivate it even longer than a 28-day moon cycle. And so what CJ is saying is, when you feel the pressure to launch something now, the pressure of time, the feeling of lack, the feeling, just like, I have to do this, and it's not coming from that organic overflow, to take a step back and know that you can work with these energetics of the moon cycle and flow with it. And when we attune to that greater flow, then our creative energy and our projects flow.
Yes. Oh, and being in the flow is so juicy and so good. And sometimes challenging, and I think that's something. When I was first learning about manifestation, um, it was very sugar coated. And I think, as I really grew into my own processes, I learned a lot about what it really means to be in the flow. And a big thing was like, I think of a river, and the fact that when the water is flowing through a river, it's not just an even bed. There are rocky parts. There are parts where it rushes, and there are parts where it just sits still. And so it's just like that in our lives. And when we're in the flow, it means that we're just able to really go with the energy of whatever is present at that time.
Absolutely. And when we set those intentions, the universe, the universe hears that. So oftentimes when we're like, this is the way it needs to manifest, I'm waiting for it to happen. And then spirit brings us these people and these signs and these messages. Oftentimes, if we're so laser focused on the one way, we may be like, why is this happening right now? Why is this in my field? It's a burden. But really, like, there is medicine in everything all around us. And when we attune to that and see that we are co-creating with the divine, we are love making all the time by with harmonizing with everything around us, and asking us, what's the deeper meaning of this? What is the deeper meaning? What does this mean to me? Why is this coming to me now? I feel like that's the part of manifesting with the divine, being able to be in that surrendered state and co-create, rather than like, this is going to be done at this time and look this way.
Yes. Oh my goodness. It's so true. And, it's interesting because like something big that I learned from a coach of mine was that we don't come into this world with anything that we're not supposed to have. And so that includes your visions of what you want to create in this life. If you can dream it, then you're meant to receive it. And I think that can also be said about the hard times that come up, even though that can be really hard to accept sometimes. But it's like, if this is here, it's because you're meant to learn something from it. You're meant to be in this space, and you are also built to move through it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, with the new moon energetics and it being dark, and, a lot of us can, if we're not bleeding, still just feel those more shadowy, challenging aspects come up. And our culture that celebrates so much joy and like, put on a happy face, go to work, be productive. Oftentimes we don't want to be in that messiness. We don't want to be in that pain or that sadness or trauma that's coming up, because it's intense and it can cause us to stop and to halt and to pause and whatever we're creating and trying to produce and get done. But that is where our magic is, being in the fierce feminine, being able to surrender and deeply feel and allow things to just die off and rebirth. That's where like the divine epiphanies and the intuitive knowledge comes in suddenly. And we're like, aha, it's because we can see differently, because we've let go of something that was taking up too much space. So absolutely, those times, they can be challenging, but it's the process of life. It's the menstrual cycle, it's the moon cycle. You know, in the heart, like, we have two sides of the coin. We have grief and we have joy. They're both one of the same, and by feeling the depth of either, we're able to feel the depth of the other one as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's beautiful. And I'm so grateful for that all the time. I know some of my deepest depths of grief are what birthed who I am and where I am today, now. And, I was telling you, Ali, earlier also about the Sexy Sacred Balance coaching program that I've created. And I was recently speaking with a client around that. And so I bring that up because this is a part of that program. The sexy part of it is finding confidence and finding stability and foundation in who we are and how we create and how we put ourselves out there, how we shine our light, and those tools that we get to have in this lifetime that we can work with to find balance in spirit, because it's all about mind, body, spirit balance. And so that spiritual aspect is just as important as everything else. And the way that I really came into all of this was going through my dark night of the soul, losing my mother and losing my partner of 5 years and losing my home and living in a basement room and going from like this beautiful, stable job to working 5 jobs and then realizing like, I can't even be in my hometown anymore. It's time for me to leave, move, and go somewhere else. And it was just like, if I didn't have these amazing tools, I don't know where I would be, because I don't know that I would be so intentional about what I would choose. And also, if I didn't allow myself to go into the depths of all of it and meet it with inquiry instead of trying to resist the resistance that was showing up in my life, it would have been such a challenging journey. And because of that, I'm always reminded of the fact that we need to go through the shit sometimes. We are lotus flowers and we got to go through the muck to blossom. It's just life. It's the dark and the light, and both need to be present for the other.
Yeah, the rose has her thorns as well. It's just part of it. And CJ, like, I'm always just in awe of you and your creations and this woman's poetry and music. Every time you speak, I feel the depth of where you've been and the challenges you've experienced, and that's what makes your creative offerings so raw and so real and so easy to connect with. And yeah, this part of stepping into your sacred offerings, if you're creating a red tent community group or you're designing a program or whatever you're doing, being able to connect with your story, your raw emotions, and be vulnerable in it, that's the way that I've found myself connecting deeper to my sisters and my clients, is being fully authentic me and owning like all aspects of my happy bubbliness and the depth of my emotion and what I've been through, what I've lost, the pain of my menstrual cycle and the 2-week-long periods I've been on. Being able to share that is part of the human relating. We feel ourselves and see ourselves in each other's stories. That's what makes us relatable. And so I've always felt that from you so greatly. And I know that that's where your magic blossoms from, is your ability to go there in those challenging spaces and have been there in many experiences in your life. So yeah, going forward, do you have any additional tips that you would like to share with just creative beings, entrepreneurs, writers? We're all creatives, right? We're all artists in our own way, whether it's writing or food or poetry or Reiki or anything. So as far as this manifestation process goes, is there any additional tips you'd like to give somebody as they're in this creative process and maybe having some blocks, because they always come up, right? These are breakthroughs in disguise. Do you have any wisdom that is coming through that you'd like to share?
The biggest piece is just to honor the cycles. Just know that you don't have to figure it all out, and you get to create your own timeline. So it's not ever about like, and I mean, this was the biggest thing for me, that I was like, okay, this takes a lot of pressure off. So I'm hoping this resonates with someone out there, that whatever it is that you're creating, whether it be your next online course, if you're just looking to, start coaching or write a book or whatever it is, take time with it. Don't rush it, because when it is time, it's going to flow through you. We are conduits of all of this stuff that we are sharing and teaching. We're vessels. And so all of the work, everything that you've learned, you don't have to worry about how exactly you're going to present it. You don't have to worry about it being perfect. You just have to be able to be fully clear, so that when the time is right, spirit can move through you, or whatever you want to call it, whatever source, spirit, God, goddess, whatever it is, that entity, that force, that energy is going to move through you, and it will make sure that what needs to be put out there will be put out there when it's time. So your practice is to just honor the fact that whatever you can do, always be in preparation for that moment to come. And when you're working with the cycles of the moon and, honoring that it comes again and again, you can break it all down. You can even set one intention and just go with that one intention for the 28 days, and you'll be amazed at what will flow through you. So simplify it and just let it all come as it's supposed to, and I can guarantee you're going to get so much done. It's like getting to the top of a hill, or to the top of a mountain, and looking back and being like, wow, I can't believe how far I've come. So yeah, that's my tip.
It's beautiful. Oh, I love you.
I love
you. And we love all of you. We're just sending you all love on your sacred journey, following your heart's art. Know that you're supported. Know that this sisterhood is always here for you, and so is the wisdom of your womb. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, Allie.
Absolutely. And if you'd like to check out more of what the sister is doing, lifebythemoonyoga.com, as well as she's on Instagram. And she also teaches yoga classes and writes beautiful Ayurvedic recipes and amazing poetry. And we've always been talking about leading a retreat together, so maybe that'll manifest eventually, and we're inviting you right now for the future retreat between us.
Yes, sexy sacred balance and yummy food and moonifestation. Oh yeah, juicy offering. So excited.
I feel it. All right, blessings, goddesses. Blessings to you on your sacred journey. Mm-hmm.